Hello there, this is David from David Books and Comics. Today I want to do a deep dive through Warriors of Blood and Dream, an anthology book edited by Roger Zelazny. And as it says in the blurb, it's 15 remarkable tales of martial artists in perilous realms of the future and the futuristic. And the reason why I'm doing it is because somebody commented on one of my videos that I presented on martial arts fiction and science fiction and so on. I think it was on the King Kung Fu series, and said, is it really a common trope or subtrope, or whatever you want to call it, in science fiction? And I said, yes, it is. I said Stephen Barnes, who was one of the founders of cyberpunk, as cited by John Clute in his Encyclopedia of Science Fiction, he makes the comment that the Street Lethal series by Stephen Barnes, which is a series of 3 books, are can be considered cyberpunk, and it really is one of the founders and one of the originators of cyberpunk. Anyway, so that's Warriors of Blood and Dream. We'll start with that. So the book is an anthology of martial arts short stories. The book features writings by people like Stephen Barnes, of course, Joe R. Lansdale, Michael A. Stackpole, and others. It was compiled in 1995. The stories offer a untried yet true formula featuring martial artists in incredible situations. Stephen Barnes, of course, was a pioneer of this formula, but the other writers have since experimented, people like Stackpole and Walter John Williams. Zelazny does all the introductions to each of the stories, and at the end of the stories, there's a short biography of each of the writers. So there's a kind of blurb at the end of each of the stories that are featured. The last story is a funny one. So anyway, I can show you what's in here. So the copyright is 1995. I don't believe this was released as a hardcover. The cover is done by Dorian Vallejo. So, and they're all, copyright 1995, and all the stories have copyright 1995. So an introduction by Zelazny, a really interesting, engaging introduction by Zelazny. And these are the writers: Lansdale, Gerald Houseman, Joel Richards, Jack C. Haldeman II, Walter John Williams, Jane Linskold, Dave Smeds, Richard Lupoff, Stackpole, Karen Haber, Victor Milan, Jeffrey Carver, Larry Sigriff, Stephen Barnes, and Kazuaki Tanahashi in a very short story called Circle, a small circle. Anyway, so that's that. And it's a nice little compilation of short stories. Of course, the most interesting one is the one written by Barnes. And when the commentator mentioned, I responded with simply saying, well, there's movies like The Matrix, where you can see the influence of Stephen Barnes in the movie, especially when he talks about the null boxing. And then there's the this series by Steve Perry. It's The Man Who Never Missed, and that's, I think, 6 or 7 books now in this series. And basically, it's about this guy who's an expert at targets. And fascinating story and fascinating series. Anyway, that's The Man Who Never Missed. And then, of course, there's the Stephen Barnes novels, and I'll show you those. So there's this one. This is the first one. I think it's the world first. And this is published by Ace Books. It's back in the 80s. And Let's see here. Yeah, this is the second printing from 1984. Original copyrights from 1983. And if you look at the guy on the cover, he looks white. And of course, in the stories, he's not. He's African American, just like the writer. He's an African American writer. So there's the second book in the series and the third book. So there's Fire Dance and Gorgon Child. So a little bit about this series. So the main character is a guy named Aubrey Knight. And there's a supporting character that you see there on the covers. This is how he looks when I read the stories here. Doesn't look like that. He looks like this. And the second supporting character is a woman called Promise. This series is science fiction. Science fiction cyberpunk. Stephen Barnes has long held an interest in all things martial arts, and he throws a lot of his ideas into this series. As the adventure begins, Aubrey Knight, who lives in a kind of scorched earth, kind of Los Angeles, is out with his girlfriend for a leisurely jaunt on the beach when he is suddenly wrongly accused of a crime and sent off to this ultra maximum state prison penitentiary. Before he was sent off, and I read this book quite a while ago, he's a null boxer, is what I seem to remember, by training. So he uses his skills in boxing, under tight controls, of course, to help him survive. Eventually, Aubrey Knight escapes, but not before he deals out the just vengeance that his prison captors deserve. And of course, it's well described in the book. Barnes knows what he's talking about. When he gets out, he goes underground, literally under the surface in Los Angeles, and joins a group of underground nonconformists who fight against a very corrupt government that rules over Los Angeles. Aubrey Knight eventually becomes the leader of the resistance. Along the way, he meets Promise. Promise reminds me of Trinity in the Matrix movies. So there's many parallels, of course, with the Matrix films. Also of interest, and I'll read it to you just for your sake so you can see, is his interest in martial arts. And this is from Warriors of Blood and Dream. And this is the afterwards from the short story called Sandman that Barnes wrote for this anthology. And it's interesting. He writes, "People don't practice the martial arts for the same reasons they take up table tennis. In the majority of cases, there are fear and power issues to be dealt with, often strong enough to be emotionally crippling if unprocessed. The question remains, once these basic issues are resolved, why continue the practice? The answer? Sometimes for fun, sometimes for fitness, sometimes to teach others. Then there are those who continue because the martial arts, like yoga, offer a bridge between mind and body, unlike that commonly found in Western sports. Additionally, some believe that Eastern movement arts offer a threefold path linking body, mind, and that mysterious quality known as spirit. Is there a reality beyond the phenomenological universe? I don't know. I do know that walking the threefold path is one of the most satisfying things in my life, a wonderful way to busy up my days. And that, for now, is quite enough for me." And that's from Stephen Barnes. And this is his other famous book where he delves into the question of mind, body, and spirit. And it's kind of depicted there by the artist in a kind of mystical way. This is the Kundalini equation. All right, so it's an old book that I picked up. It's a tour book. And let's see when that was published. This is from 1986, first printing. Let's look. Yeah, it's a paperback original, it looks like. All right, so that's that. So there you go, is my delving into, in response to the commentator who commented on science fiction and cyberpunk and martial arts. Really and truly, it's always been there from the first stories that were published by people like Gibson. If you read it carefully, William Gibson, you'll find elements of it in his novels also. It's interesting to read the Larry Niven's little comment here. He says, the science fiction field is blessed with an immense range of human, inhuman, and transhuman cultures. The enclaves of civilization and savagery in Barnes' trilogy are a match for any of these. His characters, Aubrey Knight and Promise, Cotonou, have no match short of Bester's Gully Foil. All right, so that's nice little nice little blurbs. There's also a blurb from Peter O'Donnell, the author of the Modesty Blaze books. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this little presentation on the Street Lethal series, or the Aubrey Knight Promise series, and on Roger Zelazny's Warriors of Blood and Dream. And if you did, and if you want to see more content, just remember the thumbs up thing for like. Appreciate all the comments. They always inspire some thoughts and challenge some thoughts. And feel free to share the video with anyone that you like. All right, thanks. Bye.